Lucky you.
36 best holes in
Into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about
Sandy.
golf, poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script.
Down the stretch they come.
We are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
So, Billy Regan, welcome back. Guess who we have on the program today? None other than Mark Loomis, someone I've known since he was old enough to outdrive me at the age of 3 years old.
Welcome aboard, Mark. It's a pleasure to have you.
I basically oversee remote and studio production. So that involves, for a long time, I was the actual person producing the shows, but this is a much more of a management role that I started at the beginning of last year. So it's been a good transition. I got lucky. They moved to Stanford, and so it's real close. And so kind of right place, right time.
So how connected is the Golf Channel stuff with NBC?
Very. So we first of all, the people. So take for this week at Bay Hill or the Players Championship. They, the people who are producing the show for NBC are NBC Universal employees, and so are the Golf Channel people. And there's a ton of crossover. So a lot of the people who work on NBC shows work on Golf Channel shows. Obviously Thursday, Friday, they're producing the shows on Golf Channel, in Saturday and Sunday before they go on air on NBC. So it's all intertwined. I'm involved with the NBC broadcast to some degree, but Tommy Roy is basically the person who does all that.
Yeah, I know Tommy for decades from Illinois before he moved to Florida.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
I noticed Carabanks and was it Kurt Byram were on the Golf Channel, I guess. Was that right? And now you have them on NBC Sports. Why did you make that move, for example?
Yeah, I think Golf Channel moved to Stanford in the beginning of 2021, and I think part of that was to get Golf Channel and NBC to kind of work as one. So I think what you'll find here as we go forward is that people like Kurt Byram and Cara Banks and Damon Hack this week is doing interviews. Brad Faxon got hired this year to work on the NBC telecast, but he's also going to be doing live from next week at the Players. So it is I think we are evolving into it being much more of one place. Pete Pavak was in charge of NBC Sports. He's also in charge of Golf Channel. And so I think that the goal when I kind of got there was how do we make this more efficient? How do we work together within NBC? And Tommy and I spend a lot of time talking and on the phone about different things. You think about an event like the US Open where we're on 10 hours a day. There's a huge crossover between the people that work on NBC and the people that will be, in this case, it'll be on USA, which is also part of the NBC Universal family.
The impression comes across as that you are synchronized NBC and Golf Channel, especially
that's the point. Yeah, and I think that happened a while back, with the logo, but I'm not sure kind of behind the scenes it was quite as intertwined, and I think we're heading more and more in that direction.
Yeah, and they direct you to go over to NBC or back to the Golf Channel, so the cooperation is very evident.
Yeah, we don't care where you watch, just keep watching.
Just keep watching. That's what we want to do anyway.
Exactly.
So what does someone like Brad Faxon? So I've had, Frank Gifford, you knew him, I knew him. He used to tell me how he prepped for Monday night football games. What does someone like Brad Faxon, for example, do, or anybody else out there at the event do in a way of preparation? Because this is week to week, and you're going 6 or 7 weeks in a row, right? It's tough.
Yeah, I think the key to it is I think the people that you look for, and what I've found over the years is that the people that you want involved are people who are in the golf world day to day. So you take a guy like Brad, who is, not only a great announcer, but a great teacher, was a great player. And so what I would say is that Brad's day to day giving lessons to Rory McIlroy or Brandon Matthews or whoever he's working with keeps him in touch with what's going on with golf day to day. And then when they get on site, they basically, the one thing they try to do, first of all, they know the golf courses for the most part, but, so Brad knows He knows the golf course, but he's out there checking it out. What's it playing like this year? What are the differences? Where do what's the rough like? How firm are the greens? But then he's also spending, I think I talked to him on Tuesday. He was already up there on the putting green, on the practice tee, talking to the players, trying to get a good feel for how the course was going to play that week. So I would say the preparation never stops, really. But the actual preparation the week of is it's as close as you can get to preparing to play the golf course, in terms of learning how it's going to play. As you're not out there hitting the shots, but you're thinking about how you would hit the shots, and I think that's the preparation on site.
I would imagine, like last week, had to be some other preparation that happened after Friday and Saturday. Let's get more information on Laura Baugh, on Cole, because I know Eric Cole across the street here. What a nice young man. But what a story. God, what a story if he had chipped that close on 18, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing about the designated events, non-designated events, is that I think what you're going to find this year, we'll see what happens with the schedule next year. I think that's still to be determined a little bit, but I think the non-designated event weeks, you're going to have great stories. And so, I think a lot of people were worried about what that viewing experience was going to be like at Honda when you've got two designated events in front of it, two designated events behind it. All the good players, supposedly are not playing in those events. But first of all, you realize how deep they are, how deep it is. I mean, Chris Kirk's a pretty darn good player. And then you find guys like Eric Cole who are out there who might not kind of break through, but then he broke through last week, and then you know what? He's playing well this week. So I mean, it's amazing. They're so good. They're all so close. It's just right. It's just getting going and getting a momentum. And then the one thing that I've heard that I've learned over the years is when you do play well, you better play really well. And what I mean by that is you better finish in the top 3, because if you finish 12th when you're playing really well, the weeks you're not gonna stick around. You got to cash in on your big ones.
I think it's actually a good thing. The positive side of it is that guys who might get swamped by all the big players there's some openings for them now to get on the board. And for years, I've thought it would be great if the PGA ran an event eligible, only non-winners are eligible to play. So there'd be a guaranteed new winner in the event. But
you're getting close to that. You're getting close to that.
You're getting close to that. Yeah.
Talked about Brandon Matthews, and I brought up Eric Cole. They're 2 rookies. I know both of them. Brandon was at our house for Christmas. But the difference in the two, like you just said, Brandon missed all the cuts starting out in January from the Sony. And Eric made a bunch of them. He finished 15th in Bing Crosby, or the Pebble Beach, let's call it, right? I can't get the Bing Crosby out of my head. But 15 to a guy like that's like, winning an event, because he's going to make some 6 figures and it's going to elevate them. But the difference between those 2 rookies, talk about that. You guys deal with them all the time. These guys that are just having a hard time even making a cut.
Yeah, well, that's the difference between making a living and becoming a star. It's the juggling act.
Yeah, and I think you look. I'll tell you a perfect example of a guy who just kind of popped on the scene last week is Ryan Gerard. So Ryan Gerard just got out of North Carolina. He finished, I think he finished 5th at Honda, and he's playing that top 10 finish. He had no status going to that. He Monday qualified. He was the last person in the field last week. He finished 5th, gets into Puerto Rico, and in the second round he's in 2nd place. So all of a sudden, for a guy who 10 days ago had no status on tour, had no we'll call it avenue to get out there, is 2 days away from having a complete tour card. He probably already has his tour card by the top 5 finish last week going forward, but there's all sorts of different questions now. Is it going to be top 70? Is it going to be top 50? Like what is a tour
Better
card?
off getting 50 than staying at 70 or 100.
Yeah, we're going to find out a new definition of what getting your tour card is here going forward. But a guy like that, all of a sudden, boom, it happens. Whereas other people, they have these reshuffles. If you're a rookie and you go out there and you play 5 bad, let's just say in January you're not playing well, or January, February you're not playing well. all of a sudden you're kind of at the back of the line again. So it is, when you get your opportunities, you better take them. The good news is that the great players, the ones who end up making it, they usually take advantage of their opportunities in a hurry. Those you look at there's all sorts of stories of a Jordan Spieth who got a few sponsors exemptions. Next thing you know, he's out on tour, right? And that happens. Now there are also the Max Homas who go out there, lose their card, and they have to dig their way back up. But the great ones usually get it done quickly.
Yeah, the Homa story is great because he is a good player. He's busy in a lot of other things. For you guys, he's a great on-course person. He's put the earbud, right? I don't know if you guys did it, the other network did it, but I think that's what these guys want to do because they're creating their own brands, right?
Yeah, I think that's the one thing that people talk about live and all sorts of other things that have happened to the PGA Tour in the last 14 months or in the last 12 months. But what I would say is one of the things that's happened is it's made everybody think about how to rethink what direction we should go in. And one of the things that some of these smart younger people are doing is they've really pushed themselves in a social media world. Nobody better than Max Homa. And then he also understood that, and I tell you, from the TV side, we've been asking forever to do interviews on the golf course, but we never could get the tour to agree to it. But now people are thinking, hey, you know what? We need to make our product as appealing as possible, and this is a way to do it. So Max was the one who led the charge through the PGA Tour, and CBS, to their credit, got it on the air first. But now you're seeing it week to week. We had last week on NBC, we had Chesson Hadley on, we had Billy Horschel on. This week we're hoping to have somebody on. Next week we're hoping to have somebody. So it's something that's evolving. Now at some point, 30 interviews in, you might get a little tired of it. And you're gonna, but big events, to hear from somebody in the middle of the round is good. Is good.
And it gives people a chance to get to know. All you have is impressions of golfers and how to root for them. Listening to Chess Hadley, for instance, I became a fan. He was humorous, lighthearted. Same with Max Homa. They seem like they'd be fun to hang around with, let alone play golf with. So
yeah, and they're very comfortable talking golf. And I think one of the main things about these interviews that they've stressed is like, let's make it a golf conversation. Don't ask about my family. Don't ask. Let's talk golf in the middle of the round. And it's been good because those players are very comfortable when they're talking golf.
Okay, so on the other side of the camera, how many cameras? Is it the same amount for every event, or is it specific to each event? How many cameras are out there?
Yeah, so it's very specific to each event. It depends. I mean, it's a little bit depends on how many people are watching. I mean, if you go back to when I was at Fox, when we were doing the U.S. Open, I'd say we had 100 cameras.
Right.
If you're doing a week-to-week PGA Tour event, you're probably closer to 25 cameras.
And is it the same director throughout?
Yeah, for the most part, by network for the most part. And so, yeah, it's the same director. And then, it a little bit depends on the golf course itself in terms of, can you move around it fairly easily, or can you put a camera on top of what we call them spiders, but cameras basically. Can we move these cameras around, or do they get stuck where they are? And that adds a little bit of that'll add a few cameras if we have to leave them there for the whole week.
How long before you think drones will take over most of the? I know the union doesn't want to hear that, but
I think we're a long way away from drones taking over. I think drones are a great addition to the golf coverage for sure, but it's not quite that easy. You can't follow a golf ball with a drone quite as well as you can follow it with a hard camera. People don't like drones hovering over them while they're making a swing. So yeah, we're a little bit away from that. I'll believe that when I see drones delivering my packages to my front door, I'll get a little closer to that. I keep hearing that's going to happen, but I'm not buying it.
No, when that happens, I'm going to write my will and lock the door.
How tall is that camera behind the 17th green next week? That one up.
It's probably It's probably about 50 feet in the air. I've actually, I don't know the answer to that specifically, but it's big because you're so far away. You have to get way up in the air to. It's tall. You have to get way up in the air to kind of get the right angle on it. But yeah, they've done. I think Tommy's group at the Players Championship have done a great job at really bringing that course to life. I played there for the first time this fall. I hadn't played there. Well, I shouldn't say for the first time, but I hadn't played there in probably 30 years. And you kind of feel like you've already played it by how many times you've seen it on TV. It's a great experience.
It's, to me, as close as you can come to CBS and Augusta, because everybody does know the holes now. There's excitement in the second 9, whatever you want to call it.
And you can see more of the holes now at Augusta. They used to limit what you could show, right?
Yeah, for sure. They used to, well, they limit the amount of time on the air, so you saw a lot less. Yeah, but yeah, it's always been the question for do you for an event like the U.S. Open, where you can travel around the country and see different golf courses, is that a good thing, or do you like the familiarity of an Augusta? And I do think that's one of the real kind of charms of the Masters, is the fact that
Same place every year. Yeah.
Yeah, you know every hole. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Open should travel.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it always will.
for sure.
It's almost, to me, like a chorus. The people that are telling the story, whether it's you or the other networks, and that's important to me. If you have a bunch of people out there where their voices aren't nice to listen to, or they're boring, or they're not memorable, it's going to impact it. I think that is really impressive what NBC Sports and the Golf Channel have done. I'm a I watch every minute I can. You know me, Mark. And I don't think that's easy to do. And I think you've added some other chorus members recently to improve that chorus, which is great.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's hard. I think it's harder to do than you and I want to admit, right? And so I think it's hard to find people like Rich. There's just aren't a lot of Rich learners out there on the Golf Channel side. There's Dan Hicks. There aren't a lot of Dan Hicks. I mean, they really aren't.
I don't think there's any more than one Dan Hicks myself. I think he's the best.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's really hard to find those guys. And then, you well, there's 200 professional golfers, anybody could do it. They just talk golf. It's easy. Well, not really. It's easy. It's not too hard to answer questions in an interview, but it's hard to have original thoughts when you're watching a golf event and really explain what's going on out there. It's a skill that maybe is undervalued. That those people who go up in the booth, they were golfers originally, and now they really have to be professional announcers, and it's not easy. So I think the one thing that I've really enjoyed about Golf Channel NBC is that we have so much volume, and we have so many different types of events from Korn Ferry all the way up through the US Open, that we have chances to use people in smaller stages that then can work their way up. You take a guy like Smiley Kaufman, who a year ago wasn't even doing TV, and we used him on a featured group at the US Open last year that very few people are listening to. You get a chance to go out there and talk for 5 hours because it's only about one group, and you find out quickly who can do it and who can't. And so Smiley, we started him there, and then next thing you know, he was doing a kind of a fall tour event, and we started, he did a college event, and then you can make your way up. Whereas at a place like when I was at Fox, it's a little harder to do. We didn't really have that stage of finding people. We had a little bit of feature group stuff, and we did find Brett Quigley did a great job for us on feature group the first year we did it, and he ended up as one of our main people. But those are few and far between. So it's hard to find them. So Golf Channel really gives you a real option to do that. And we're starting to use Johnson Wagner a lot over the last 2 months, a local guy, and he's been great.
Yeah, I thought Faxon was always going to be great. And in just this last week, I think he described, and that, as your point, on that moment, he's under the pressure to describe what the pro's thinking about. He's going to chip it. Is he going to putt it? If he's going to chip it, where's he going to land it? If he's going to putt it, how high is he going to play it? I also think, I like Smiley Kaufman. I think he has so much ahead of him. I think he's such a talented guy. And I think like anybody in their first job, right? Is he going to, show you everything? I don't think so. I think he's going to be great for years to come. And he has the relationships out there, right?
Yeah, he has the relationships. He's actually, you'll hear, he'll be on NBC this weekend with Bay Hill and going forward with players. Yeah, he has the great relationships, which is, look, it's hard to find young, qualified people to do this because the ones who are really good at it usually are playing their whole career. Now Smiley, he went into a place where he just wasn't playing as well, and he just accepted like, hey, you know what, this isn't going to work out for me. What's next? And he's really embraced this role on course, and because of it, he'll be good. Yeah, he has the relationships, he has the knowledge, he has the right attitude. He loves golf. I think number one, when you get these announcers and these people on, they have to love golf, right? If they don't love golf, they're going to get bored on Thursday afternoon talking.
And they're going to bore the audience.
And they're going to bore you. So they have to love it, and they have to have a natural enthusiasm for it. And nobody epitomizes that more than Brad. I mean, Faxon, he loves golf. He if you're playing with him on a Tuesday afternoon, he's really enjoys being out there and loves it. And so those people are the ones you're looking for.
Was Johnny Miller one of the first, so we say retired golfers to go into the booth?
Not really. I mean, Byron Nelson. I mean, when I first started at ABC, Jack Nicklaus was an analyst for us. But Johnny Miller kind of became the face of TV golf, in the 90s and the 2000s.
He wasn't afraid to say what it was on, just came right out of his mouth.
He was different. I think when I got into TV, I think people were describing it, but they tried to do it in a nice way most of the time. I think Johnny just said what he thought.
Right.
And I think it's a skill that's grown, and I think people are better and better at it, but he was at the front of it. He did an amazing job with it.
And he had a career that, could stand up to some of the remarks he was making. It wasn't like he was commenting about stuff that he didn't understand.
For sure. He had the credibility, that's for sure.
Johnny Miller, I don't think ever got the credit for being a pretty decent regular guy. I remember sitting on the top of the hill at the Open in 2006, and he came by and sat next to us, and I said, you want that bunker shot over in 7 West, in the 74 Open? He joked about it, and he said, boy, this golf course is so tough. And he just talked like the three of us are talking right now.
Yeah, he's great. I didn't ever really get a chance to work with him. He was gone before I got here, but he's revered at NBC for sure.
Speaking of guys you worked with, who was a bigger influence on you in your career? Was it Brent Musburger or Keith Jackson, or did you have great experiences from both of these guys?
Well, that's a good one, because two of the top for me. I would say Brent was really instrumental for me in that he was really the first guy of his stature who I got a chance to work with regularly, and he really was a champion of mine, kind of to make my way. I was his scorer in the booth when we started. I was basically his researcher, and I mean, he's the best. He nobody you would rather have a couple beers with than Brent. He was fun. When I was in college was when he was at CBS, and people heard different things about it. He was like an anchor monster, and I grew up watching him on Sundays. He was the NFL. That everyone watched that pregame show. And when I got he came over to. I started ABC in '90. I think he came over in '92, and I got basically he didn't know much about golf, and they said, Mark, he knows how to be an announcer. You teach him about golf. And he used to call me One Iron. I guess I was a little thinner back then, but we had a great,
that's a great
we
name.
had a great rapport. And I talked to him every once in a while still. I mean, I ended up doing basketball with him and Dick Vitale. Ended up being his producer about 10 years later on college basketball. But he really was great to hang out with, a ton of fun. And he had a huge impact on me, kind of making my way, my first steps in the business for sure. And then Keith was everything. Kind of my greatest, maybe my greatest honor in TV was getting to do his induction speech into the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. He asked me to introduce him for the Sports Broadcasting Hall of Fame. I started working with him when I was 32, and he was almost exactly the same age as my dad. And I think in some ways he treated me like a son. I mean, he was great to me. He was great to me.
He's a giant in the broadcasting Hall of
And a
Fame.
heck of a golfer. He shot his age every year from the age of 68, I think, to 83 or something like that.
Wow.
He was a heck of a golfer. That's how we got to be so close. We have it's a funny story about how at first event I produced with him, they had something called field turf in Nebraska, where they had just put in, it was a new artificial turf, and it was kind of made up of tire rubber. And I had heard Keith was a good golfer. I'd worked with him a couple years before. So I thought a cool way to show the tire rubber was to hit a golf ball from like the 40-yard line. We did that on Friday as we recorded. So I had Keith, who I knew was a good golfer, and Bob Greasy, who was also a good golfer, with the two announcers. And I said, hey guys, why don't we go? You guys hit golf balls. We'll record it. We'll show it slow motion. It'll be fun. People get to see you hit a golf shot. So they both hit and they both missed from 40 yards. They missed the field goal. And I was like, yes, I thought you guys were good at golf. And they said, oh, let's see you do it. And I was able to do it. And he said, oh, you want to play golf next week out in California? And friendship from there. So
What was the club of choice from the 40-yard line?
It was just a wedge, and we just kind of, it's an incredibly easy shot until you really, it's like a field goal. It's like an extra point. It's incredibly easy until you actually have to do it. And then you're like, oh man, this is, you do it every time if you were on the range, but with people watching, it was a little harder.
And it would be even tougher if you had, NFL players rushing you while you were doing it.
That would make it harder. We didn't add that element.
Future skills challenge, Billy. Note to self.
Yeah.
Talk about your thoughts on these guys who made up this wonderful PGA Tour and this larger golf game that we enjoy.
Yeah, I think it started with Arnold. The right guy at the right moment with when TV was coming to the forefront, and all of a sudden you had this guy who understood entertainment on top of being an incredible golfer. So Arnold was kind of at the forefront of golf on TV. And then Jack was a great foil, right? I think when he started, he got a lot of flack. People weren't happy to see this kid come up and beat their hero.
Like Roger Maris.
Yeah, exactly. But, it turned out Maris was Ruth, though. I mean, and then next thing you know, here comes Jack, and he was just, I think Jack didn't necessarily grab you with his personality on the golf course, but he just was so dominant. It was incredible, over the years. And I think people just, more than anything, just came to appreciate him. And so that, that he grabbed TV from there, but no one's grabbed TV like Tiger grabbed TV. I mean, when you watch, like if you go back to Genesis a couple of weeks ago, there were almost 3 times as many people watching those events this year as opposed to when he doesn't play. There's really no one else in golf who moves, actually probably the person who's second on the list right now moving the needles, maybe Jordan Spieth, which is a little surprising, but he moves it a tiny bit, Rory a little bit too, but nobody has ever changed golf on TV like Tiger Woods did. And he made it, people who don't watch golf day to day, they go find Tiger Woods on TV. So that's been incredible. What's next? Hard to say. I mean, John Rahm is playing so great right now. He's been great, but I'm not sure that the American audience is going to latch onto him, like they would even a Jordan Spieth. So I think there's a little bit of a lull here, but the good news is that there are so many good young players that week to week, and especially actually these designated events have turned out pretty well in terms of having really good players on top of the leaderboard. So I think the interest in golf right now is good, despite the fact that they don't really have that star to latch onto.
Yes,
They might turn into stars. It's early for some of them still.
Yeah, my son Ben's playing at Vanderbilt, and he's got a kid on his team who's a sophomore who just got an invite to the Masters. He's the first American amateur ever to get an invite to the Masters who didn't win kind of a specified event. He won the NCAA's, but that doesn't get you in. But you never know who that next guy is. You know, maybe it's Gordon Sargent. You know, we'll see. We'll see.
Well, somebody, Fred Ridley's got a crystal ball, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think the thing about Gordon, everybody will be interested to see him at Augusta. He gets his club head speed up to 131, 132 miles an hour, which is well above normal. So
That's Brandon
you know,
Matthews' speed.
yeah, exactly. Brandon Matthews' speed, but with the full package. He's #1 amateur in the world right now, as of like 2 weeks ago. So, you know, those guys, there's a million of them coming up. You just never quite know who that'll be. But in the meantime, we've got a lot of really good young players out there.
Is what do you want to talk about regarding Liv? If you don't want to talk about it, that's okay too. We don't.
No, I don't mind. That's all we talk about. What are you talking about? I'll talk about it.
Billy and I have talked about it a lot, and we just say it's all about Bucks, Do, Re, Mi, right, Billy?
Absolutely. At least
Yeah, I
for
mean,
now, because they haven't established any kind of tournament that the general public or even the general golf world would really care about winning, except for the money.
Right. So, I mean, that's the thing about Liv, is that they have good players, there's no doubt about it. They have plenty of money, no doubt about it. And, you know, I think back in the day, we all kind of got into the skins game a little bit. You know, that was all about money, and people for a week could get into that. And, you know, part of that too was that it was Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Tom, you know, it was
that was fun to watch.
And we had nothing else going on Thanksgiving, you know, weekend from a sporting event besides football. But I think what you do see with Liv is that if you don't have any history behind what you're trying to win, it's really hard to pay much attention to it. I mean, it doesn't feel, at this point, it doesn't feel very much more than an exhibition. Now, I know it's not an exhibition. You talk to Peter Uihlein, who had struggled forever to get his tour card, and he won over $12 million last year. It's not an exhibition for him.
No.
But I mean, it does, when you're watching it, it does feel that way. And, you know, we'll see what happens with it. You know, we certainly, you know, I think the PGA Tour is a good product that's getting better. And I think that Liv has helped that a little bit. I think it's pushed it. There's no doubt about it. But we'll see what happens. I think the question with Liv is how long. It's never going to be, it doesn't look like it's ever going to be something that makes money. So how long is somebody going to be willing to lose money on a venture like that? And I don't know if there's an answer, because there's so much money in Saudi Arabia that I can't answer how long that'll be. But right now, it does not look like it's a compelling product that people are going to be, you know, lining up to watch.
Seems dependent on a concept of teams, which I have zero interest in golf. You know,
yeah.
I get the soccer team concept. I get that, and why there's so much money there. People, you know, are willing to beat up each other in the stands over their team, right? Their passion.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the World Cup. I mean, I don't watch soccer week to week, but I do like watching the USA play in the World Cup, you know, once every 4 years. But that's your country. It's hard for me to root for the range goats. You know, I don't care about that in the on Liv or the Aces. You know, it's not. That's just, I don't see why I would ever latch on to that. I mean, we actually show college golf, you know, a fair amount on Golf Channel, and you know, you could root for your university or you could root for your college, but it's hard to root for a kind of a made up team.
Yeah. So back to football for a second. If you started and said, you know, I'm going into football, would you be more interested in doing what you do with college football or with the NFL?
So I've done both, and I would say that it was more fun to do college. I mean, I think, you know, when you're doing the NFL, I think when you're in my business in TV, the pinnacle is NFL football. You know, if you're Fred Gaudelli and you produced 8 Super Bowls or whatever that number was at NBC and ABC, like that is the pinnacle of what we do. And so I would never undersell NFL football. It is awesome. You know, people, as you can tell by viewership. But if you're talking about an experience for me, going to produce a game, going to a college campus on a Thursday, getting there on a Thursday afternoon and meeting with the home team coaches and players, and then going out to a local restaurant, just seeing the energy around it. And then Friday, getting ready for the game and seeing that, the parking lots filled with campers and people. And then you get there on game day and the parking lots are, full with people who are into it. And just the pageantry that goes along with college football, tough to beat. And, for me, my experience was incredible getting to work with Keith Jackson, Dan Fouts. And, it was, the Rose Bowl, I did a bunch of Rose Bowls. That event, there's two events that I've done that are kind of at the top of the list: the Rose Bowl and the British Open, in terms of just the atmosphere. And when I say the British Open at St. Andrews, those two events are incredible. It's like they were made to be played. It's like Augusta; they were made to be played at those places. And college football bowl game at Pasadena doesn't get any better, and then a British Open at St. Andrews doesn't get any better.
This past St. Andrews.
Any St. I've been to St. Andrews. I produced a couple. I did the one, the Tiger one in 05. I did the one that that Oosthuizen won in 10. I've been to, I think, 7 Open championships at St. Andrews. The first one was 1990 as a runner. And just going there is, every time there's an Open, it's if you ever get a chance to go to a British Open at St. Andrews, if you're a golfer, that's number one on the bucket list.
Well, I watched as much as they offered this summer, and I was rooting like crazy for our guy Cam Young here, right?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Driving range after the Open across the street here in Tequesta. And I leave these guys alone, but he took a break and was wiping the towel off or something. I said, how the hell does Cam Smith get it up and down from the bunker on the road hole? So he said to me, he said, he's got a 4-degree lie in his putter. So he sort of had like a chipper. Could you have asked for a more interesting suspense? I mean, McIlroy should have won that, right? Everybody was going to coronate McIlroy, but he just didn't get in the hole, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it was a movie, Rory McIlroy would have won, right? And,
right, of course.
That was right, the anniversary and everything, and Rory McIlroy would have won at St. Andrews. But the good thing about sports is it's not a movie. It doesn't always have the ending you're expecting. But yeah, Rory just didn't make any putts on Sunday. I actually walked around it because I'm not producing the shows. I had never actually walked around on the golf course during the event, and I met Rory on the 9th hole, and I walked 9, 10, and 11 with him, off to the side on the ropes, and just the amount of, I don't want to call it pressure, just the focus, I'll call it, on Rory that day was incredible. People were yelling his name every step he took. I wonder if after 4 days, just the weight of that got to be a lot. But he just, more than anything, the putts just didn't go in on Sunday.
Do you get feedback ever, negative or positive, from the players about, what's said on broadcasts or coverage or anything like that?
Yeah, the players themselves, I don't get feedback from. I get feedback in the locker room at Wingfoot more than anywhere. And
yeah, I can't wait to see it.
But no, I get the players, actually, the announcers get a lot of feedback. I mean, when those announcers are out there walking around on Tuesday, Wednesday, or even Saturday, Sunday morning on the range, and if they have said something negative about a player, yeah, they hear about it. And it's not, it doesn't get heated, but they're like, oh, yeah, I guess you don't think I can putt, or oh, I guess you don't like what I'm doing with my golf swing, whatever that is. They might not act like they're listening, but they hear it for sure.
If I'm the announcer, I think you just proved to me that I'm doing my job.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that, and like I said, I never worked with him, but everyone always said Johnny Miller never went to the range, right? I think he wanted to be a little bit removed.
He came in with a fake mustache and glasses and a hat. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think not only did he, he just wanted to be a little bit removed so that he just said what he thought was right.
So guys who are in the lead at these majors, use the example of Cam Smith and Cam Young. who played together, I think the weekend, right? They played
They played on
Saturday.
Sunday. Yeah, I think that's right. They played both days, I think.
So they go off pretty late. What is it like to wait and wait and wait? Like in an open on the out in the West Coast, you could be up at 7 o'clock in the morning. You don't go off for 7 hours.
Yeah,
It's
I think,
Saturday morning at Wingfoot.
yeah, they watch a little bit. Yeah, they watch a little bit on TV. They get up. It's amazing how much these guys work out. I'll tell you, last week I told you Will Gordon stayed with me when he was playing at Honda, and you think about how much that PGA National would beat you up, through a 4-day event. And he played fairly early on Sunday. I think he finished 30th or something like that. And he came back to my place and he went for a run. I mean, so those guys never, ever stop working out. They never stop working. So I think the mornings are part training, part, thinking about the day, but there's so much dedication that these guys put in that they probably spend the morning working out, getting ready.
I wonder if they learn anything from watching the broadcasts before they tee off. They could learn
a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
some guys. Actually, there's the guys at Golf Channel will tell you that back in the day, Tiger literally would go sit in the videotape library in Orlando at Golf Channel and watch history tapes of the old majors. If they were going to go to a place where they hadn't been in in 10 years, or he had never played, he would go sit there, put on a headset, and those stories are true. He would go watch those old tapes and try to learn whatever he could.
Makes sense.
Yeah, for
Videotape
sure.
is
Oh,
big.
100%. They do it. I mean, the hitters do it, and these days they take the iPads down into the dugout, and they're watching the pitch sequence, right when they get done. I mean, everyone's watching everything these days.
I remember Jim McLean years ago at a clinic said the reason pros videotape their swings is so we don't stay lost for long.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because otherwise you can correct yourself right out of a good swing.
Right, and these launch monitors, and all this information that they have now, it doesn't take them long to get back to where they were when they were playing well.
Yep.
So let's talk about Jon Rahm. You brought him up earlier. Guy, I did a little homework. 124 out of 137 cuts, 10 PGA wins since 2016, 8 international wins. He won the Open. Is golf easy for Jon Rahm? He's been good so long now. Is it easy for him? Has he figured something out nobody figured out? What is it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one of the things, and it goes to what we were just talking about, is he just believes that the way he swings the club is the right way for him to swing, right? So I don't think he spends a lot of time worrying about how Rory McIlroy is swinging the golf club or about what's the perfect golf swing. I think he is convinced that his golf swing is perfect for him. And so that's, the confidence that takes, and the self-belief is you can't be undersold. He's incredibly strong. He when he's on, the one thing they've always said about he's not a great iron player. Well, he is right now. So
Sure is, yeah.
He's finally taken the one thing that maybe wasn't his strength, and now it's one of his strengths. So he's playing as well right now early in the season as anyone. There was a segment on Golf Channel, on Golf Central last night, talking about how, if you go back to the great seasons in golf, how they got started through a few months. And if Jon Rahm wins API here, he'll be on a similar pace that a Tiger was on. Nobody's won 4 of their first 6 since Tiger did. He'll be on a similar pace to when VJ won. I think VJ won 9. I think people forget that, whatever that number was. And through the years, his start this year is historic. And we'll see if it keeps up. We'll see if it keeps going through the Masters.
Good.
It seems like he doesn't run as hot as he did earlier in his career.
It's easy when you're hitting at 10 feet not to be ticked off, Billy.
No, but I think that probably helped him.
Yeah, no, I think he matured in that way some, but as Bob said, yeah, it's when you're hitting at 10 feet on every hole, how hot I guess you can get hot if you miss the putt, but that's about it. That's about it.
One of your guys on your team knows the answer to this question, Mark. When's the last time you missed a 10-footer that wasn't a triple breaker? I mean, if it's left or right, he's making everything that he can see. But yeah, his iron play, that's what I noticed. And gosh, I've never seen him. What do they call that? Just kind of ease an iron. He's always hitting everything full out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now you wonder, you wonder if a short swing like that, as he gets older and not as strong and not as athletic, you don't know how, but the good ones evolve, right? So they evolve to whatever they need to do. So we'll see how long. And it's hard. Look, it's hard the ask on golfers is to be, elite and great for 20 years, whereas most athletes are great for 10 years. There are very few Tom Brady's out there, so it's hard to do it. It's hard to want it for that long, and so it'll be interesting to see what his progression is over the next 5 years.
Well, if he doesn't want it for that long, he could just go over to live.
I mean, he would have been high on their list of people to try to
Sure,
get.
probably
so,
still is.
Yeah, right.
These guys can look at it almost like a pension. I'll play
Yeah.
a few more years here on the PGA Tour, see what I can win, and then cash
Exactly.
in.
So
Exactly.
take out Wingfoot's West and East, top 5 courses for you internationally.
I've always been a huge fan. I love St. Andrews. I think I just love I'm not telling you it's the greatest design golf course ever because it was designed a long time ago. But you talk about a round of golf I'd like to play. St. Andrews is high on the list. Pebble Beach is high on the list. That's just a great experience. I love Pinehurst, number 2. I think that's a great golf course. Pine Valley is a great golf course, and then I'm a big Seminole fan as well. So those would be 5 that jump to the top of my head. But man, I just love playing golf, so I hate to only pick 5. I can probably keep going here for a while.
Mark likes sand, Billy. We figured that out. So what's the toughest bunker shot at Wingfoot? Of all the bunker shots, the last one you'd want to be in?
The toughest bunker shots. I think one of the toughest bunker shots is early in the round on the first hole on the West golf course. If you get pin high or above, going across that green is about as hard as it gets to try to get that right, unless the hole is in that little swale in the middle. Then it's not too bad. But a bunker that I don't want to be in. Well, I don't ever, and I actually hit it in this bunker, and I was thinking this last year. I don't think I've been in this bunker in 10 years, but I hit it in the right bunker on 15 east, and I was like, "What am I doing down here?" I have missed that green.
You get hurt down there.
I have missed that green left 100 times, but I have not missed that green right in a long time, and I was not happy with but I will not be back in there anytime soon.
Yeah, that's a very tough up and down.
Yeah.
Well, you had an easy club selection. You took your 56 or whatever. Billy and I are thinking, do we take a 9 iron? Do we take it? It's a long shot, right?
I'm thinking about taking a putter and going out the back side of the green and then trying to hit the wedge up on.
Yeah, I think if you wanted to put somebody in a bunker where they couldn't get up and down, no matter where the hole is, 15 east, right on 15 east is about as hard as it gets.
And short siding yourself on 18 on that left-hand bunker is not any fun either.
No, yeah, some of them are dependent on where the flagstick,
where the pin is.
Yeah. But 15 east, forget it. Doesn't matter where that thing is.
So let's see. Taking 2 east and 80, 16 west, and I guess 5 west, and making them all par 4s. Out of all those 36 holes, it's a large sum of money. Which one do you choose where you have to make a par or better? You got one shot, par or better. Which hole are you going with?
You're talking about which hole do I think
What's the easiest par?
The easiest par at Wingfoot is
par 4, yeah.
I would say I think the easiest hole is 1 east. I really do. I think that is a pretty,
I agree, and I think it's by design. It's sort of like welcome aboard. Get yourself a little warmed up because you got some surprises coming.
But you put the hole in the back right of the green, maybe not, but to me that one is the hole where I always kind of feel. I always say if you start in the club championship and you start 5-5. You might as well just go right to your car if you parked it down by the practice tee and keep going, because that is a bad start on the East course.
Yeah, you're 2 shots behind already.
Yeah. In that vein, what do you think's the toughest green to putt at Wingfoot of all the 36 greens?
Let's see, the toughest green to putt.
Or
I think
read?
13. The first one that jumps out of my head, just as we think about it here, would be 13 East. I think is a brutally hard green to putt. And then 1 West. Just maybe just from the fact that it's your first couple putts of the day, and who knows what kind of putt. Nobody ever hits it hard enough going up the hill when they start. If they're on the front of the green, and if you're in the wrong part of the green and the hole is over on one of those ridges if you're on the wrong side, you're in trouble.
Yeah, I think 1 West, even though the read, is hard to execute the putt.
Yeah, it's not like you don't know what you're trying to do. It's just really
Right.
hard. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I find 15 East the hardest to read for some reason.
15 East is hard, no doubt about it. But there's a relatively few hole locations up there, so you kind of have a pretty good feel of where you are. Now that new back right, I mean, I've seen more people putt it off the green.
Yeah, it takes off.
Exactly, it takes off. That's not easy. I agree.
Which pro golfer, if you had a chance to play one round with a pro golfer, dead or alive, would you like to play golf with?
I would say either Lee. I'm gonna either or. I never played with Lee Trevino. I would have loved to have played golf with Lee Trevino. I loved the way he played golf. It was just fun to watch him play golf, and I loved the way Seve Ballesteros played golf. As you can tell, I probably, I like the way Seve played golf because unfortunately I hit it all over the place like he does, and I admired how he got out of it. And then Lee Trevino, I don't think I've ever seen anybody control a golf ball. I used to actually, when I first got started in this, I very rarely would go out and watch golf. I'd be in the trucks, I'd be working. But when the one player that I did go watch, I would go watch Lee Trevino. If it was a windy day, I would go watch him play 9 holes. And it was so much fun to watch. And I would love to just talk to him about golf and how he thought about it. Because as unconventional as it looked, I bet you that I feel like he understood how to hit a golf ball and how to make a golf ball move around maybe better than anybody. And I always thought it would be great to pick his brain.
I have a feeling you'd do more listening than talking with Lee.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I would enjoy that. Yeah, I think I could just ask him a question and off he goes.
Yeah, he would be natural to put some earbuds in his ear because he'd say, "Yeah, when do you want me to do it? I'll do it right now."
Yeah, exactly right.
He would do it on the 18th hole if he was Eric Cole facing that chip shot.
Absolutely.
Right? He wouldn't mind that. He's had other pressures that are far bigger than that in his life, right?
Yeah, I mean, to think about where he came from, and just to think about, we talk so much about instruction and TrackMan and swinging, all these, everybody's working with every teacher, and to think about what he did with nothing, without any of that help. He owned his swing, which is, I think a lot of us wish we did.
Wasn't it he who said, pressure is playing a $10 Nassau with $5 in your pocket?
Exactly. He learned how to play under that utmost pressure, and so that later in life, when he was playing in the U.S. Open, it didn't feel like much.
Yeah, and he looks like he'd be a lot of fun.
Oh
yeah, I think so. I think he'd be great to play golf with. I think I've heard he's quiet off the golf course, in kind of in other moments, but when he's out in public, man, he's on stage. He's awesome.
Any thoughts on Winged Foot's next 100 years? You've been around your whole life at Winged Foot, like Kenny Faraday. You grew up at Winged Foot, and what do you see?
I've been fortunate. I've been on the Centennial Committee, so I've talked a lot about it. I'm actually, been helping them put together these little vignettes about Winged Foot over the first few months, and we have more to come. But I think Winged Foot going forward is the one thing that you have to remember about Winged Foot when you talk about what a great club or whatever. When you really talk to people who know about golf, the first thing they say is probably the greatest golf experience in golf, right? So that's number one. It is a great 36 holes of golf, and you'll hear that from every top player who's come through there. And some people, there's two different perspectives. There's the perspective of the U.S. Open people who come through there, and they see the golf course under U.S. Open conditions. But then you take a guy, Curtis Strange, I worked with for a long time, who knew JP, who knew JP O'Hara, who knew a lot of other people, and came through Winged Foot on a random Saturday, and played golf and went in the grill, and then did like the 110 tasty that would go out and play 1 and 10 East, and those people realize that it's not just a great U.S. Open venue, but it's the day-to-day, all-time great golf experience. And then beyond the golf experience, the experience in the grill room or Geo's or whatever, the people that are there on how much they love golf. If you love golf, Winged Foot is the place for you. So going forward over the next 100 years, we're in such a great place to be set up as the golf, as one of the top golf experiences in the country. I can't see anything but good. I mean, and there's this resurgence in golf, and Winged Foot kind of was sitting there, and it's always been great. And it, as golf resurgence, there is so much interest in getting into Winged Foot, to playing at Winged Foot, to being part of Winged Foot, that I can only imagine great things for the next 100 years.
It'd be kind of nice to accumulate all the great athletes from Babe Ruth to Mickey Mantle and guys like that were kind of regulars at Winged Foot over the years, right?
Yeah, I used to see, speaking of sports, I used to see George Steinbrenner at Winged Foot sometimes. I heard him calling in the lineup from the men's grill one time. So anyone who says he wasn't, I can vouch for the fact that he was. So
You sure he wasn't firing Billy Martin?
No, I heard him. I heard him to go through the lineup. He wanted Oscar Gamble and right field. It was funny. It was funny. Yeah, I agree. And I think you're right. I think it's fun to kind of be around there day to day and run into people that you're surprised to see. But then again, as you say, you're not surprised to see, because they want to come through and play at some point.
This has been great, Mark. Thank you very, very much. It's awesome to hear the inside golf perspective from somebody who spent a lot of time at this and been influenced by a lot of people.
And don't be surprised if we get higher ratings than the Golf Channel with you on here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I please don't, but that'll be bad for my career. But I appreciate it. The one player that I did go watch, I would go watch Lee Trevino. If it was a windy day, I would go watch him play 9 holes. And it was so much fun to watch. And I would love to just talk to him about golf and how he thought about it, because as unconventional as it looked, I bet you that I feel like he understood how to hit a golf ball and how to make a golf ball move around maybe better than anybody. And I always thought it would be great to pick his brain.
Thanks for joining us today.
Billy Harmon.
We really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity.
And please
Markey.
subscribe to the
Two
show
Router.
and hit
Claude
the bell
Harmon.
icon so you get notified.
Movie Classics.
New episodes.
Mark Gable.
Hit them
On
hard
Job.
and hit them off.
Best 36 holes.